So what I'm going to be doing is, because I read what you sent us on your other training that you've had and such and all, but please feel free to either put a question in the chat or to just unmute and ask a question. It doesn't, that's just fine. So this is going to be not the very beginning of Nearpod, since you've already had that training, though they'll, if we need to review something, we certainly can do that. And so I'm going to try to show you ways to use some of the new features and how to, edit it and things you might not have thought about that you could do with your students. And so I'm going to do this is live participation. And so here is the code. So I'd like for you to put in GMT201019. Nearpod recently had to start putting numbers in their code, but I guess they'd run out of all the combinations. But it is still, it's not case sensitive. GQD29. And for you, the teacher, that code is always going to be on your screen up in the top left-hand corner. So that if you have students come in late, you can certainly quickly give them the code. Even if you're 3 or 4 slides into your presentation, it will bring the students to where you are. So let me just go ahead. Now, this is what this is one of our favorite tips, is that a lot of times at a beginning of a presentation, I have something that just keeps everybody busy till we can get everybody on, because I know everybody has not signed on yet. Down in the bottom left-hand side of my screen, I can see how many students are in my class, so to speak. And right now, only 4 of you are showing up, but more are coming in. It's a long ways from Rhode Island to Texas and all. So having something like this, sometimes I use one of the 3Ds or anything that just kind of keeps your students from wondering what's going on or whatever. And so you can go on, we found through searching on Google, just a lot of mazes. And again, you're just using the draw it tools that are there in the bottom left-hand corner to see if you can work yourself through the maze and all. So this is just, okay, I see I have about 14 now in my class. I'd like a few more. There we go, we're getting more and all. Again, the code is GQD29 and all, okay?
So Joan, the code is in the chat.
Okay, good. So if everybody will just look at the chat and all. So some of you did not know you were going to be looking at a plate of spaghetti this early in the morning and all. Okay, and I'm double checking to make sure I don't have people waiting to get in. Okay, so we're going to go on. You can go ahead and submit. And again, this is something, if your students have submitted, it will show up in your reports of whatever they have done. Now, you can also put a timer. You can put a timer now almost on any of the activities and such. So moving on. So that, again, that's kind of just a tip to have something on that first slide that keeps the students engaged while everybody logs on. Now, I also understand that you have just gone into a hybrid teaching environment with your students and all. So I hope that's going well. Uh, it can be challenging and all. So this is who I am. I am retired, and I do still a lot of consulting and all. And I'm a level 3 certified trainer for Nearpod. And also, I think the whole world has adopted Nearpod because we've been doing a lot of training and all. So this is a Google form. And the reason I am asking for you to fill it in is that afterwards, when this is over with, I will send you additional Nearpod resources. And I'll just be able to go back into my Google Docs and have pick up your email and send those to you. So you can put a Google Doc easily within your presentation. Then, okay, I have a few more to admit. There we go. Okay. And all. So it doesn't take but a second to fill this out and all. So please do. I'm not going to send you a bundle of emails. I'm going to send you one email with the resources. But Erica, of course, I'll send it to you. It'll be that you can pass along.
I will.
Now, notes with you teaching high school, I think this is just one of the things you should always have turned on. Now, it is only on the student's screen. And up in the right-hand corner, there is it's an icon, paper and pencils, what it looks like. And when your students click on that, they can decide, do they want to have their notes afterwards sent to them by email or saved to Google Drive or saved to OneDrive and all. You, the teacher, will not see their notes. And so it is not on my screen as the teacher. So sometimes you may need to remind yourself. And this is one of the things we will make sure you have turned on in your profile in settings, because I think it's a real tool for your students. So in addition to getting their notes, they will also get the whole presentation that you do. So just be sure and try it out. Now, throughout this, you may see some slides that have like a downward arrow. That just means there's another slide, and it's usually just reinforcement. We won't look at all of these this morning and all, but that's just where you can find more information. Now, this is a poll, and so I'm asking you to finish the sentence. I know how to, and one of the things you can do on a poll is to allow your students to choose more than one selection. So you can check all that apply. And this is a great way for you to find out where your students are, or, to get responses from all of your students and such. And again, it's one of the things that you get 100% participation from the students. Also, it's building a pie chart for me. And so it's really telling me visually the results of this poll. And right now, it's about 25% are brand new to Nearpod, and about 25% of you say, I can find a lesson in the lesson library and all. Now, I know you have some people on your campus that have used Nearpod a lot, and there will be a great resource for you. And you can share out the results of the poll and all. And I like you to think of it, well, this is another way of data collection and such. So most of you have responded. And as I said, about 50% of you are either brand new to Nearpod, or you know how to find a lesson in the Nearpod library. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Now, as this is what I was seeing as the teacher, and it was building my pie chart over here. And if I had just clicked on the share button, it would have gone to all of your screens. Also on my screen is down on the bottom right-hand side, I have a bar that says hide student names. And anytime I want to share something, but I want it to be more anonymous, I can do that. And then the student names don't show up, just their responses and all. Okay. Now, Collaborate board, we really like to use those a lot. And so every time you have a Collaborate board, it will say, do you want to approve the student comments before they are posted? You have high school kids. You may want to approve those. I don't feel like today that I need to approve them. This down at the bottom, you have a bar there, and that's where you type in your response to the question. What are you wanting to learn in this session? So just type in there and then hit submit. And it's like Post-it notes, and they'll come up on the screen. Okay, they're coming in. How to better organize results, your pod features. And now, should someone put something inappropriate up there and you see it, there is a trash can on each Post-it note. And you can click on that, and that will take away that Post-it or that response. How to edit lessons, edit a lesson, that's very important, and all. How to make a lesson for distant learners. We've all had to learn how to do that and use it a lot. Robert says, I'm new to the program, trying to see if this is valuable.
For PE.
For PE.
For physical education.
Okay. Not, don't misinterpret that one. And all. So a Collaborate board is a great way to, and like if I just right now hit hide student names, and you will see now, because I hid the student names, you don't see who has made the response. And so I think that could, that's a tool for you to use with your students. Okay.
Joan, I'd also like to clarify that the Collaborate board that we're all looking at is student view. So only Joan sees the trash can. So if you as a teacher see an inappropriate comment, you click on the trash can on your end.
Right. Yes. And all. So, and also you see that I see a heart, and we could vote on the ones that was, which one do you think is the best response and such. So Collaborate board has many uses and all. So this is what I was seeing as the teacher. And you see, here's my trash can. And also all I would have to do would be to click on that, and that post would be, wouldn't be there anymore. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So when you're the teacher on your home screen, you have these buttons that are always available. You have a create, a quick launch, and your profile. and create, one, you could be creating slides, creating a new Google presentation, a new Nearpod. Quick launch is something you do on the fly. In other words, you've got your students and all of a sudden you think, oh, I wish I had thought to add a poll, or I wish I had done an open-ended question. And you can do that very, as I say, on the fly. Now, let's say you did it in period 2. It is that quick launch question, if it's something that can be graded, will be graded, but it will not show up in the rest of your presentations that you might use that day. It's only for that one. And settings is under your profile, and we'll look at those because there's some that you may not have turned on that are very important and all. So, and there are always ones that you can go back and change either way. It's just a little toggle. So here's the things you can do with a quick launch. It also could be a standalone lesson, an open-ended question, a draw it, a timer, and a collaborate. I saw somebody was talking about being a little bit more organized. Well, you can create folders, and so when you're creating your folders, we'll look at create a folder. You click on it, and then you just give it a name, and all your folders will be then at the top, and you can drag and drop lessons into those folders. You can color code them. And so for those of you that are new, you may not have that many lessons in the library. I have a lot of lessons, so I need folders to help keep me organized and all. But I think it would be nice to start from the very beginning with folders that your lessons would go into. So when you open a folder in My Library, you click the down arrow, and then you can give it a name. You can rename it. Sometimes I name it one thing. I think, oops, that doesn't make sense. And here's your color coding and all. We all need to be organized. So you click on one of the colors and such. So here's the folder. It's called ELA, and has yellow up there, and so that was the color given to it. You now can have one layer of subfolders within your folders, and all. I just have folders, but I know there's people that like to have subfolders. Maybe they say history, and they'll have period 1, period 2, period 3 as subfolders. When your folders come up alphabetical, you can rename the option and number them if you want a different order, and such. I'm happy that they're alphabetical. That makes sense to me and all. So one of the things that Nearpod does is they keep adding things to it. I've been using Nearpod almost since its birth, and there are just so many new features that they keep working on, and it's much more dynamic than it used to be and all. And so they listen to the teachers. A lot of the things that are in Nearpod now came about because teachers made the suggestion. I had the suggestion the other day that why can't we do in the quick launch, why couldn't there be also the ability to make a poll? So I said, well, we'll turn that into Nearpod. I'm sure the programmers are just inundated with great ideas. So Nearpod does a good job of keeping you up to date. And so there's a blog out there, and we'll have information about the updates. sometimes I forget to look at that, and I'll go and I go, whoops, that wasn't there when I created the lesson and all. So they are always working on improving it for everyone. So they have webinars that you can watch. You can follow the blog and all. In August, they added interactive videos. And so these are videos that you can either use standalone or you can use within a lesson. And when we say interactive, it means that they have questions in the videos and all. Or you can bring in a YouTube video and you can add in your own questions, multiple choice or open-ended. But there are over 1,000 in the library. And I'm sure this activity is going to many more will be put there. There are improved ways of how the interactive video works. And we're going to talk more about this. You're doing your hybrid. So
Yes.
yes, now, so you have, is it about 50-50? 50,
Yes.
that is so true. I always like to ask though, because across the United States, all these schools I work with, maybe 50% or 40% actually decide to come back to school and all. So you have these students that are still total virtual, or they're virtual, or they may, in your hybrid model, maybe they're coming 2 days a week and back at home 2 days a week. That's
exactly it. Yep.
Yeah, that's very popular. So student paced, especially since you have older students, is going to be very valuable. One, you may not know what's going on at home with those students. Maybe they have a part-time job. Maybe they're helping their siblings with their lessons or getting online. And so with student paced, they get to choose the time. And what we're finding right now, and this is just personal. Remember, I don't work for Nearpod. I just do training for them. That the interactive videos work very well in these self-paced lessons. The students start the video, they watch until a question pops up, they answer the question, and they continue. When you're doing it in a live presentation, like we're doing a live presentation today, you're going to get this pop-up question every time there's any kind of video. Do you want to show this video on all devices or this device only? Now, in talking about that and in seeing how this works, if you are doing it on all devices, that means it's going out to the student devices. You just have to keep in mind your students may not all start that video on their device at the same second. So you may have them coming on and being staggered. So you need to allow time before you move it on to the next question, because it will cut them off if they haven't gotten to that question, and they may not be able to really answer it. And so if you can show it this device only, which means it's just going to be on the teacher device and they will be watching it and all. Some say, well, the sound's not as good. I really have not had that problem. And when I do this device only, but we kind of like to give everybody a heads up. We don't like surprises and all. So if you wanted to watch the video and answer the questions, and show the video on all devices. If we ever get our students back in class and you choose all devices, I only do that when all the students have earbuds, because it's just too much noise bouncing around. So a suggestion, there's on Facebook and on Twitter, there's a very active Nearpod educators group. And, teachers love to share. And so one of the ideas that came from that was to have a video that's kind of a countdown. Use a 3, 2, 1 on the slide right before, so that your students will all kind of stay together when you're doing it in a live presentation. So, your slide might look like this, and that way you'd get them all. Of course, you could have a student that just decides, oh, I'll just wait a while. And so once you move to the side with the video, you need to click the play button in the middle, and the students will do the same on all their devices. Now, when your video reaches the first question, pause a few seconds, and so that all of them get to that same point before you click start to the activity back up. And these, this is like anything new that you have for the first time, that we just have to work through and to get our students used to it and to get ourselves used to it. Now, this is just another hint. The students can press the large play button in the middle when it is time to move on to the next portion. However, the teacher will need to press the small play button in the bottom left corner. I know the first time I pulled one up and came to a question, and then I thought, well, how do I move this along and all? And most of the time, everything to me in Nearpod is very intuitive, but this, I had to really kind of look around on the screen to figure out, okay, here, once we get to a question, and when you see a round circle like that, that means that's where the question is. And so for you, the teacher, if you're playing it live, you click on that, and that's what makes the video continue. So here's just a 3, 2, 1, go. So this would be what I would get, and I would get, where would you like this video to be played? So I could choose all devices or this device only. Now, I'm going to do all devices so that you can, I think you understand what it would be if I just played it on mine. But I'm going to say all devices. And you can see you have a play button. I have one, it's in the middle. And this one, it has, the video is about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. It has four questions. Any place there's a blue dot.
The most famous fighting unit in the Spanish-American War was the 1st U.S. Volunteer Cavalry, better known as the Rough Riders. These legendary horsemen rode under the leadership of Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay, so now, that came pretty soon. I, as the teacher, because we're doing this back into live participation, I could go back to the video, or I could say start activity. So I'm going to hit start activity. And now you have a question. What do you already know about Theodore Roosevelt? And I've blanked out the name so nobody will be embarrassed and all. So just go ahead and respond. But, videos are such a powerful teaching tool. And I love this one on the Rough Riders because, it's kind of grainy. It's like how, videos were made. So what I'm seeing on my screen as the teacher, I can see all of your responses. Also, I have a share with class button, because sometimes a student will just really nail the response. And you may want to share that out with the whole class for a discussion. And some of you know more about Theodore Roosevelt than others. Police commissioner in New York City, president. mustache. He wore that funny looking mustache. Oh, I love this one. A teddy bear was named after him. That's very true. And all. So I'm going to give my class enough time to respond to this question before I start it up. Now, this continue, and this is what I was showing you on that screen capture. Down in my bottom left-hand corner, I have the button that I click on that moves us on.
In April 1898, TR resigned his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy to prove himself in battle. Roosevelt personified the can-do American spirit of the times. Using his fame and forceful personality, he recruited more than 1,000 men from all over the country to join the Rough Riders. The volunteers included cowboys, Indians, college athletes, mounted policemen, and even polo players. They all could ride and shoot and be ready for war with little training.
All right, so you can see how this is working. These questions were embedded, and as I said, I wait to hit start activity for just a few seconds, so hopefully all my students have gotten through to this point. Now, this is a multiple choice question. Which of these best describes the Rough Riders? Just one question. Now, remember this video had 4 questions already built in. I could add more. If there was a question I didn't care for, I can delete a question. So we're spending quite a bit of time on this, but just because it's new, and if you choose a lesson from the library, most of them probably will not have an interactive video a part of it because this is such a new feature within Nearpod. It reminds me a great deal of Edpuzzle that's been around for a long time. And I like having the questions because if I just play a video, especially one that's longer than this one, I know the kids are going to start, thinking of things to fiddle with and not, stay focused on it. But also I think with you student paced and in your, that this for them in that environment will be really great. So not all of you have answered, but because I'm getting a pie chart that shows me the percentage that have not answered, but all. But I'm going to go ahead just for the sake of our time. Again, I'm starting it back up.
This diverse American band of brothers shipped out to Cuba on June 14th, 1898. A shortage of space on their ships forced them to leave most of their horses behind. The Rough Riders would have to fight on foot. They landed in Cuba on June 22nd, 1898, and immediately joined regular U.S. Army forces marching toward the key city of Santiago. On July 1st, 1898, the Americans began their assault. Roosevelt, the lone Rough Rider on horseback, led his men as they charged on foot up Kettle Hill, battling not only intense fire from Spanish guns, but 100-degree tropical heat. After they captured that hill, TR led a second victorious charge up San Juan Hill as part of the most famous battle in the war. This is what Roosevelt would call his crowded hour, his greatest moment. He had finally proved himself a battle-tested warrior.
And so then it comes to the next activity or the next question. And when I go ahead and hit start, again, this is a multiple choice. So I think this will give you a very good idea of what an interactive video, how it works and how it works for your students. And again, I'm seeing all your responses. You were paying attention because I'm getting all the right answers and such. So that helps me as the teacher to see, are the students engaged? Are they listening? Are they paying attention? And all, because this was a very specific question. And all, so I guess you are the gifted and talented class. And then I'm just going on. We're almost.
After the capture of San Juan Heights overlooking Santiago, the city surrendered and the war was virtually over. The Rough Riders received a hero's welcome in New York. On September 16, 1898, after 137 days of service, they disbanded as one of the few volunteer units to see action in the Spanish-American War. The Rough Riders live on as legends, and their most famous member, Teddy Roosevelt, would become the 26th president just 3 years later.
And then this would be the final question that was already there. And this is an open-ended question. What did this video make you curious to learn more about? So I'm just going on with our presentation today. So again, these are just slides that you'll be able to, if you need to go back to them, that talk about the interactive video. I don't know if you use Flipgrid with your students. It's okay. It's the student.
We do.
Okay. You know how it's a student response program, really fun. And so you can, you could still use it exactly like you've been using, or you can add it as an activity within your Nearpod presentation. And you can monitor the Flipgrid responses while you're in Nearpod. And so it's, so it's, I think it's a tad bit confusing, but how you do it, but let's look at that. And so the students are given a code. So what you do, if you want to put it within Nearpod, you log into your account, and recently Flipgrid changed so that they're called topics now. You pick your topic that you want to add into the Nearpod presentation. And when you're on that topic, you copy the URL at the top of that page. Then when you go back to your Nearpod, you paste that URL into the first blank. It says Flipgrid teacher URL, but it's really the topic URL. And then you go back to the Flipgrid page, you click the share button, click copy, and then you get the link in the second box that you to put in on the Nearpod slide. Insert the Flipgrid student URL. So it's, it's a couple of steps going back and forth. Also, there is a partnership with Immersive Reader. This may be helpful for some of your students. Now, it does not work on a iPad or something like that. It's not, in other words, an iOS device. It will work and it will show up when your students are on, say, a computer and all. And the students will learn that when they see this icon and they can click on it, that either the question and choices will be read out loud to them, whatever is there will be read to them. And so this is what it would look like. This is just a
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could.
So, and when we get into our settings, you'll see that that's one that you can turn on or off. And what it was showing is you could make the text larger, you could speed up the reading, slow it down, and all. So another feature that they've really improved is the ability for teacher to create an audio file. And you may find a lesson that's been in there a while that you've created. I know I was working, I've gone from preschool last week to high school and I pulled up a lesson I had done, probably 4 years ago. And we didn't have the ability to do all these things, but you can take, if you find something in the Nearpod library and you would like to add your voice to that file, you are able to do that. And we'll look at where that shows up. So they've made audio a stronger feature than it used to be. And sometimes, you may want to, your audio file could be, pay attention to this next 5 slides. It's going to be on your test. Whatever additional instructions that you might want to give for a slide and such. And so you just click on the audio recorder, and it's just a microphone. You record your voice. If you don't like it, you can trash it and do it again and all. So the maximum length of an audio file is about 10 minutes, which is pretty long. I've never made one that long, but you can go back and add audio to, previously created presentations. I love this. Students now can respond with an audio response on open-ended questions and polls. And we know we have students that getting things written down may not be their strength, but orally they can respond much better. And so when you're creating a open-ended question or a poll, on the right-hand side, you can turn on enable student audio recordings. And when the students get there, they can respond orally. You will get a audio file in the reports, so you can listen to each student. So maybe you might teach Spanish, and you want to listen to each student's response to see about their pronunciation and all. So there's lots of ways to use that. It will, as I said, it will show up in real time, and it is also in your report. You can take any slide and convert it into a draw it activity. And so you find your slide, and when you click on it just once, this convert to draw it will now be active. It won't be grayed out. And that converts it to a draw it slide, which means then you'll be asked each time, do you want to keep a copy of the original or not? But you can then take a slide that you just can't do anything with. And when you convert it to a draw it, then you're going to get those drawing tools. So it could be a slide in language arts, and you might have just sentences, and you would say, circle the nouns in green and underline the verbs in red. Or it could be a math problem, and they're going to use the draw it tools to solve it. See, this is just a slide of a map of the United States. You can't do anything with it. But if you convert it to a draw it slide, then you have, as you see on your screen right now, you have those drawing tools. So, you know, you could be asking them to color in the original 13 colonies, uh, color in, you know, anything on the map that you would like to do. Draw a line of where the, you know, time zones change. That's one thing. I feel like I have become an expert on time zones and all. I'm in central time zone, so I'm always figuring out where the different schools, the difference in the time zones. So this was just a map, but now you've got the draw it tools and all that you can, that your students can work with and all. So this is a very strong tool. This, a lot of times, especially for those of you that are new, don't hesitate to click on something. You are not going to break Nearpod. But up in the top right-hand corner of my screen, I will have a little icon. By default, it's going to look like that because most of the time I am in teacher view. And if I click on that, that will switch it to student view. And then I can bring it back to teacher view. So there are times when I'm working with students, I want to be in student view, and maybe, again, it could be a math problem. It could be, I've done a formative assessment on something and they really haven't gotten it. We need to work through that again. So I'm going to just move on. Also, on many of the slides, and this is one of the things I think that it will be important to you now that you're in this hybrid learning scenario. It's a little small square and it says add reference. And when you click on it, that means you can bring in an image. My question here was, what kind of landscape do you think Egypt has? Well, maybe I have an image of where the pyramids are. I could bring in a video. So you've got students that are working virtually or their days that they're at home. Maybe you want to put in a video for them to watch that will reinforce what you have taught this yesterday or the day before. You can bring in just an audio file, like if you had an audio file of Martin Luther King speaking. Audio recorder, though, is where you record your voice and such. A PDF viewer. You can bring in a document that's a PDF. Let's say you're teaching the poem, The Raven. It's long. And so you don't want it chopped up on 3 or 4 slides. Save it as a PDF and bring it in. That way it will be on one slide. You could add a web URL here. Again, it's a reference for your students to use and such as they are working either virtually or in a hybrid. So here is just an example. Over in the top left-hand corner, you see and it looks real tiny. You think, well, how can my students possibly see that? When you click on it, it's going to fill up the screen. And it says, if we are looking at a graph, how do we know if it passes the vertical line test? Watch the video if needed. Maybe some of your students, they don't need to look at the video. But if they do, they can just click on it.
We need to know if it passes the vertical line test or not if we're looking at a graph. So like, for example, if I had something like this versus something like this. So first thing with functions is we need to be able to do the vertical line test and see how many times it crosses. So it can only cross once to be a, if it crosses more than once, then it's no longer, okay? So vertical line test can only cross once.
So this is just
and that'll give you a function.
a very
You also
short
write what you
video.
need to on this. So it'll do the vertical line test and see how many times it crosses. So it can only cross once to be a, if it crosses more than once, then it's no longer, okay? So vertical line test can only cross once.
So this, of course, was a math
That'll give you a
example.
function.
Excuse me. It could be, you know, any of the others.
We need to know
The
if it
students could
passes
watch
the,
it as many
vertical line
times
test or not, if we're looking at a graph.
that
So
they would
for
like.
example, if I had something like this versus,
Okay. Oh, oops. Woo, I did not mean to do that. Excuse me. Have you ever done something you didn't mean to do? Let me just get us back. Now, that was a friend of mine, and she teaches she teaches in the high school. Now, because I had not ended, and you know, sometimes I like to make mistakes and say I did it on purpose. I'm just going to pick up my code that I had already used with you. And so to bring this back, and that may happen to you and all, it's good to know how to get back in. So if it knocked you out, then you have to put, your students would have to put your code back in. But you can see how handy using this reference material would be and all. And it didn't take Chelsea long to make that video. And then she had to know where it was. And then she put it in as a reference material. Okay. This is another one. This slide contains audio. Would you like this audio clip to be played? This time I'm just going to say on my device. So this says, listen to the audio file and answer the question in Spanish. Select the audio option and record your answer. So, you know, for you that teach foreign languages, this may be a great way for you to be able to see how your students are doing. And you would just click on it and all, and it would be, it just, you know, do you speak Spanish? That was, I think, the question. So again, here's another reference material. And notice it is small, but when you as a student, if you click on it, it's going to fill up, you know, and be much larger. So this was like science. In this picture, heat is being transferred from the ground to the air above by conduction. It's an open-ended question. Explain how this is possible. Remember that on your open-ended questions, they will not be graded for you because there's no right or wrong answer. And but you will see each student's response.
Excuse me, Joan.
Yeah.
I have to leave at 9 o'clock, but the other chat monitor is trying to get into the Zoom right now. Can you let her in, please?
Oh, yes. Okay. She, let me just.
Sorry.
That's okay. You know, okay, there we go. Okay, Nicole.
Yes.
Okay, we got Nicole in now. Here's just another example, a math example. Can you name these three symbols? I would hope so. Greater than, less than, or equal to, and all. So you can see how you can start using this reference material that's available to make your lessons better for your students, to give them more tools, to make it more relative and all. So Erica, as I said, I will be sending you information. I don't know if you all know about wordwall.net. It's fairly new. Free, well, there's a paid version and a free version. We always use the free version. And Unless you want to create more than 5 of your own activities, the free version is great because there's a whole lot that are already done that you can choose from. So it's called wordwall.net. And so this is an example of a Bill of Rights matching that you could put within your Nearpod. This one we did not create. It was already there. And it says match up because teachers often ask, how can I do a drag and drop and all? And you can do matching pairs, and we're going to look at some of those and all. But this is just and so you can see this is a drag and drop concerning the Bill of Rights that your students could do. And so what you do, you go to wordwall.net. You didn't know you were getting a freebie lesson here. And all. And well, let me see. Let me put this up here higher. Oh, it's just taking me back to that. Let me just get out of there and go back. So that was going to the actual site. So you go, there's a tab on wordwall.net that's called Community tab. And that's where you can search for a topic like the Bill of Rights. And you can select whether you want to drag and drop. You can change the theme. And then on the right, you can choose what type of game you want the students to play. You click the share button, click set assignment, and choose your options. Click start. That's where you get the URL. And when you have that URL, then you just put it into your Nearpod lesson, add the URL as web content and all. So also, I think this is very important when you're using VR, is especially with older students, have something that they would reflect about the VR, or maybe you've had a leading question and such. So, you know, maybe you had the virtual reality that you picked on the coral reefs. So, you know, you might say that you would have them reflect afterwards, or maybe they're looking for particular things, or how would they describe it, or what's killing the coral reefs and such. So either a leading question or a reflection. And this is another way of using Draw It. So this was just a plain slide that was converted to a Draw It so that they could respond. And on the Draw It, besides the tools, you also you have a text box that you can use. Now, I'm sure those of you that are new have decided that the Nearpod lesson library is your new best friend, because you do not have to start from scratch and all. And so on your home page, this is over on the left-hand side, Nearpod lesson library. And there are over 8,500 lessons. Well, you do not want to search through all of those. So there's different ways to search. There's different filters. And so there's a search box. You could put in their Bill of Rights. Now, if you just put Bill of Rights and you don't use the filters that show for grade level, you might get lessons that were being used for elementary. So you decide how deep you want to drill down. You also can look for your standards. So all the state standards are in Nearpod. You can look by subjects. You can just look for all the grades for high school. You can find the resource type. So when it first comes up, it has featured ones. Those are usually the newest ones that have come out. Here's Nearpod VR. You know that you're going to have the virtual reality. By publisher, Nearpod creates lessons. Here's his holiday events. So they try to keep that very current. Again, you may have a standard that you need to teach a lesson on, and you go in and you slide down to Rhode Island and you find that standard that you need, and it'll show you what lessons might already be made. And so you select your subject area, say math, grade, and you select a strand. And we'll look at all these in more detail. So also, when you find one, it will be available to you to look. So this is that same slide. I'm just move through this. Search by author. You'll get to know some of the people. If you're a math teacher, now Kathy Yinka, she teaches middle school, but her lessons are fantastic. This Paul Thiebert, I like to look at his lessons. Jody Lund. So you can search by people that you've seen some of their lessons. So you can bring in, you've got Google slideshows that you can bring in and put Nearpod activities on, or you can bring in PowerPoints. So as I said, you don't have to start totally from scratch. And I know when at the very beginning of this, there were several about how do I edit lessons? How do I make them better? And so you can add activities. And we're going to go back through and look at some of these, because I know some of you are about 50% or about, pretty new to Nearpod. And even if you've seen them once, you need a little bit of practice. And I like, anything that can be graded will be graded. But I really like using Nearpod for formative activities.
Joan, can I interrupt you for a quick second?
Of course.
Thank you. So Erica had left. She thought she had a different PD. I was taking over for her, but it doesn't start till 10. So she was hoping that she could get back into the Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Let me just, there she is. She's back. We got her back.
All right. Thank you so much, Joan. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. And this is what you have to do when you're doing things remote. I mean, you just got to go with the flow and all. So you can add activities as part of editing existing lessons. And you also can add additional content. And if you're a math science teacher, you may not have realized that the PhET simulations were available. And those are from the University of Colorado in Boulder. And they are in categories by elementary, middle school, and high school and such. So there's adding activities and adding content. And it's very easy to do. I haven't created some things, from scratch in a long time. I always look in the library first. And throughout this, you will see there are short videos. So remember, if you gave me your email and you turned on notes, you'll be getting this and all. So we're not going to look at all the videos, but you can certainly come back and do that. So yes, editing, and that's what we all do. We take something and we make it work for our class. We put in our questions, or we put in a website that we like, that our students will use. This is another collaborate board. Just remember, every time I'm going to get this, do I need to approve comments? So I'm skipping over some of this just because I want to go back and make sure you're comfortable with editing lessons. You always have a choice between a live lesson and a student paced. We're doing a live lesson. Student paced would be the very same lesson, except the students would do it at their own choice of time and all. The code that they get is by default good for 29 days. There's 3 buttons up here that you probably have seen, and maybe you never clicked on them, but they're very, they have a lot of information, the things you can do from there. We will check on those. So, and on the student paced, you may need to add some of those reference materials that we were just looking at to make it easier for them to learn as basically on their own. So remember, when you add reference materials, these are the choices that you have. And so in student paced, I think that's going to become very important. Here's the 3 dots. When you click on them, that means this pops up. You can share with teachers. You find a great, excuse me, we have allergies in Texas. You find a great lesson, or you made a really good lesson. You want to share it with one of your teammates. You just click on that, put in their email, and they will get that lesson. You can duplicate the lesson. There's lots of reasons for duplicating. You can add to, you can get to reports, or you can delete a lesson. So for a long time, I thought, well, why would I ever want to duplicate a lesson? Well, a couple of reasons. Sometimes when I go in and I've gotten a lesson from the Nearpod library, I've brought it into my library, but I'm going to do some editing. If I duplicate a lesson, that means I'll have the original version, and then I can just, on the second version, edit away. And sometimes I get halfway through and I decide that lesson was really good the way it was. So I don't have to go back to the library and find it. Also, if you're trying to do differentiation with your students, you could take a lesson, you could duplicate it, once or twice, and you could go in and edit those different versions and then assign it to the students that it was appropriate for. So just, that is a really good reason for duplicating lessons. Time to climb is converting any quiz to a gamified version. Now, your high school kids might look at time to climb and say, oh, that's for those elementary kids, because the memes are kind of cute and all of that. But I will tell you what, as many times as I've worked with high school kids, they like the gamified. It's just another way of reaching them and such. And there are a bunch of time to climb that are appropriate for high school students that you can use and all. So we'll talk about adding activities and such. And most of the times when you are editing, all those slides drop to the bottom and then you drag them where they want. But you actually can get in between 2 slides and paste one. Sometimes I need to copy slides from one presentation to the other, and I know exactly where I want to place it. So, I go to one lesson, I make a copy, and then I come to this other lesson and I want to paste it, and I want it, instead of letting it be all the way at the bottom and then dragging it, I just pick the spot and of where to enter it, and then I can just paste it right there. Very easy to do. These are just a reinforcement to what we're doing and all. sometimes it's a question that's always, well, where did you get that code? That code pops up whenever you click on a lesson and you decide, am I going to do it live or student paced? And throughout this, and these are some of the videos that Nearpod has created, most of them are very short. This just reinforces for you how to do it. So when you get this, you can just
It's
watch
easy
the
to
video.
launch a Nearpod lesson from your Nearpod library. Once you're logged into your Nearpod library, you can see here, this is the home base. You hover over any lesson and you can choose a live lesson or a student paced. Any lesson can be launched either way. A live lesson is one where the teacher is driving the slides and changing them, and it changes on all the student devices. And a student paced lesson is one where the students can go at their own pace and don't need the teacher to drive to change slides. I'll now show you how to launch a live lesson. I click live lesson. A code generates that you can share with students via email, link, Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, and more. The student need only go to nearpod.com and enter the code as shown here. The code is not case sensitive. Once they have done this, they'll be prompted to enter their name, and then they click join session. The teacher can then control how the slides change on the student screen.
Okay, so once you've done 1 or 2 lessons in Nearpod, that just becomes second nature. But when you're first new to it, that is really important. I love this video. This is one that I was part of it, and you see it's escalators and all. And what do they do? This, it was in Sweden, I think. And so this may be like you would have this, the students would watch the video, and then afterwards you would have that reflection slide. And I thought I got it in the right place. I'm going to have to go back and move it, but I would want that reflection slide to show up after that, and they would answer the question, or what did it make you curious about? And you're probably curious about what goes on in that video. It's a very good one. So as we said, this is, there's lots of resources for you. Just don't be afraid to click on anything and all. This is a time to climb. You can change the scenery. This could be Halloween. If you do not want the sound, you can turn it on. All you do is click continue. And so then as students, they pick their meme and all. Now, as I said, there are lots of time declines. But you can take any quiz you have and turn it into a time decline and all. For me, the teacher, I'm seeing you pop up and all, and I see, it tells me how many are connected. And once I get my whole class connected, and we're not going to actually get all of you into it, I hit start, and it's timed. So if everybody answers under the 30 seconds, it moves on. For me, the teacher, I have a leaderboard, and I can see who is at the top of the leaderboard and all. There is a great time decline. This is for you, the English teachers, on there, and there. That's hard for everybody to keep straight. So, there's some that really will fit in with your curriculum. So, so I'm just, because what we're going to do next, remember that your students do not have accounts. You're the teacher has accounts. Students do not have accounts. And so they're going to be able to get to your lessons by just putting in the code and all. These are just some resources for you and such. 3 easy steps. Up here at the top of my screen, I have a little down arrow, and that's another way that I can end the session or get to reports. I will have a report on this presentation of how you all did immediately when this class is over with and all. So this is just showing you that you have resources that you can go to. Very active on Twitter. And as I said, there's a Facebook group Nearpod for educators and all. And, you know, teachers love to share. So it's great that you participate and watch. So I'm going to end the session. And I said, are you sure? And I'll say yes. And so you should be, I'd like for you just to be at nearpod.com into your account, because there's some things I want us to look at here. Now, remember I talked about settings in your profile. Over here in the right-hand corner of your screen, or if you're just watching my screen, you see this little round circle. It has my picture on it. Yours may just be grayed out. I click on that. I slide down over here to lesson settings. Now, these you can turn on or off. It's going to be strictly up to you. If you're using Google or Office 365, you can and single log on your, you know, that will put the auto right at the beginning. They won't even have to type in their name. Here's how it enable immersive reader. You know, I would turn that on. I would turn on enable student notes if it's not on. This is strictly up to you. Do you want in quiz and multiple choice questions in the student-paced version, do you want your students to see a graded version of their quiz? That would be your choice. I have this one turned off. Allow students to resubmit answers in live participation mode. If I wanted it turned on, I would just turn it, click like that. As I said, I can come back and change this anytime. I would for sure turn on the Collaborate board for student-paced lessons. So if you have a Collaborate board and this isn't turned on and they're in student-paced, when they get to that Collaborate board, they'll get a pop-up window and it's going to say, waiting on teacher input. They will not be able to respond. Require student submissions. I definitely would turn this on. So they're in student-paced. And do you want them to answer all the polls, the quizzes, anything that you've put in there before they can move on? Well, yes, I would like that. If I put them in there, I want the students to do this. Now, quite frankly, if it doesn't take students long to figure out, if they have an open-ended question, they could just type in some characters, letters off, you know, keyboard in, and then they could move on. But you would see that in the reports that that's their response, and you could address that. So I would turn that on. I got to this by going to my profile, sliding down to lesson settings. Anytime you see this Nearpod icon, if you just click on it, that will take you back to your library. And so now we're back in my library, and you can see I have these folders. Then I still have lessons that I haven't put into a folder. I know that this is a video on weather because it has a time underneath it and all. But this is your new best friend over here, the Nearpod Library. So when you click on Nearpod Library on your left-hand side, it opens up. This is where all the lessons and videos are. And so these are the latest ones. Scrolling across the top, you can see, current events. Here's a time to climb. But here's where you start being able to find what you're looking for. So let's say I need a lesson on Bill of Rights. I just click on the magnifying glass. And so here are all of these on the Bill of Rights. Now, I did not specify that I wanted high school. So if I have Bill of Rights and I click on high school, I add another filter to it. And so now these are ones that are geared for 9th through 12th grade. So I added a filter to my search so that I could get those. Now I could have 8th grade. I could have, find maybe some of these are, even though it says 5 through 12, there, it may be what I'm looking for. Anytime I want to clear out the filters, I just click on this X and that. I need to teach a certain standard. I click on this. I scroll down to Rhode Island. I'm a social studies teacher. I teach high school. So you see, I'm drilling down. Here are the strands. And so I could open this, and there's more than just that, but I'm just going to pick this one, and I'm going to click on it. And so this would be the lesson that meets that criteria. So you can find something, sometimes you'll have 3 or 4 choices, sometimes just one. Again, I click on the X, and that cleared all of that. I could just click on English Language Arts, high school. And so I would start seeing all these lessons and such that I might, organizing a description, including a paragraph. So there's quite a few. There's a lot of SAT if your students are needing lessons on the SAT. Or if I say I am a science teacher and I take off English, then I get lessons that are going to be in that category. And so you see these that have a teacher's name underneath it. And I would say this, that teachers can't just throw their lessons into Nearpod. They are submitted and they have to meet certain criteria before they are put into the Nearpod library. Okay, so you may find lessons that way. Maybe, so I click just social studies, but I still have high school on. So even though this is 5 through 9, it reaches into this. Paul, this is at Paul Thiebert. He does a lot on in social studies and such. So this is how I do my searching to find a lesson to use with my students. So I could do that. Here's, I think I skipped math. Don't want to skip math and all. Here's quadratic formulas and all. So I would come, that's one of the ways. Now, I still had social studies on, so I was getting some social studies in there. If I would like, I can just click like that. As I said, a lot of times you may just want to type in the topic. Now, if I type in time to climb, and I'm going to click on high school, and I'm going to, oh, it came up automatically. You will see that I have these that are relevant for high school, DNA and genetics. So it's just another way of reviewing and such, keeping your students engaged. And then, so I click out, and then I'm back to this, and I could just put in, I'll go back to Bill of Rights. Oops, but I do want to say high school. Okay, so you can see a lot of these this was made by the Nearpod team. This comes from iCivics. Remember, they have done a lot. They have a lot of partnerships and all. So anytime you find a lesson, you must preview it if you think that's something you want to use. So I go, and so here I'm getting this lesson, but over here, here's some related ones. This has 26 slides in it. That's fine. I go through and I preview it. Now, in my brain, I know I can take out questions that are slides that, you know, my students are not going to be it's not going to be relevant to my students and such. I can change this. So I just say, but this is a good starting point. So I say, add to my library. That way I took it from the Nearpod library and I put it into my library. And you can see as I go down through here, I have a lot of ones that I've taken out of the Nearpod library because it really saves me a lot of time and all. Here's one on that Jody Lung did that was on World War I and all. Now, it doesn't show, it shows it's in my library. Remember, but I found it in the Nearpod library. So let me just show you that World War I. I'm searching and high school, and we'll make it a little easier. So you see all of these are some from Crash Course. Here's a video. Here's another lesson that Jody Lung has done and all. And so I have all of these that I can use, but I always have to preview it. And then after I have previewed it, then I get that option of adding to my library. So again, you see that it's easy to get something out of the Nearpod library into your library. And once you have it in your library, most of the time it may show up right here at the top. Sometimes it drops down to a different spot. And see, you can see I really need to clean this up. That was World War II. So I've downloaded a lot, but when you're getting started, this is what I would do. But let's just take this lesson, and I really didn't preview this very well, but let's go to edit. You're about to edit. Do I want to duplicate it before I edit? Sometimes that's a really good idea. So now it spreads all the slides out. And so my students are not going to be interested in iCivics. I'm on a Mac, I'm holding the command key down. I don't need that slide. I really, I don't need that. We're not going to do think, pair, share. So I can take out any of these slides I wish. So I've chosen 4 and I just click on delete slide. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. So I go through here and I might delete, quite a few. But you can see I have polls in here. There's some draw it activities that I liked. Here is the fill in the blank. But here's where it gets fun. I go to add a slide and content. This is where I can add these different pieces and all. So this is a video, this is new. This is where you would say, I want to find a video to put in this lesson from the video library. And I'll just, World War I. And so, yes, there were some. So here's one that's 3 minutes and 52 seconds. And so if I wanted to use that in my lesson, I would preview it. I would say, here are the questions, and I would save it. And you can trim from the beginning or the end. And as I said, when you're adding slides this way, they drop to the bottom. And when I'm adding a lot, I just sometimes let them all land at the bottom and then drag them where I would like them to be instead of doing it one by one, at that. I could just add a slide with more information on it. Here's my web content. I could type in a URL that I would like for them to go to. Most of them are very long. I'm just picking a short one today. I always test the link. I don't want any surprises and all. To make sure, okay, it went to NASA. That's what I typed in. Great. And so then I just save it. This way your students are not getting out of Nearpod to go to this website and all. All they'll have to do is to click on it when it comes up on their screen. And as you know, many of the URLs can get tricky to type it all in. If you have the vocabulary piece, it's a separate piece that can be added. Here's the Nearpod 3D. They have them in categories. Here's science teachers. You've got the auditory system, an animal cell, all sorts of things here that you can choose from and all. They have them divided by into categories. So if they were studying the respiratory system, again, you must preview it. And you look and you say, oh, this really would give them a better idea of I like it. I'm going to put it into my lesson. Add a slide. So you see, I'm doing the same thing over and over. Right now, I'm just adding content. Here are the PhET simulations. High school science. It's kind of hard to do hands-on science right now. And so they have a lot of these. These are from the University of Colorado at Boulder. So maybe this one probably couldn't do, but maybe that's what you're teaching. Again, I preview it. If it fits in, I click done. So you think about too, when you're doing those student PACE lessons, for them to be able to have this type of additional content. Here's the VR field trips. This is a partnership with 360 Cities, and I want them to see the Shakespeare Theatre in London. I do search. Now, again, 360 Cities certainly vets the what they have in for you to choose from. Here's the one I really like. I preview it. And so they can see what theaters look like at that time. Hard wooden benches out in the open and such. Now, you may get some tourists in these because a lot of times these come from people traveling, but they submit them to 360 Cities. They look at them And if it's really up to their standards, they will include it. And I will tell you, I tried it. I went out in my backyard and I made a 360 like this. I submitted it. And a couple of weeks later, I got a very nice email saying it wasn't good enough. So yes, they do. Here for you math teachers, here's the Desmos graphing calculator. This is BBC, British Broadcasting. Again, they have them in all these different categories. Some of them are going to be in black and white because of the time that they, represent and all. They're very good. Sway, you may not have heard of. To me, it is a PowerPoint on steroids. And all, I like them. I have never created one. If I want to use one, I just come here and say I'm doing something in history and all. And so here's colonization of America. And I preview it. And what it is, when your students get to it, you just glide through it. And there's lots of information. So, that can be here. This is a stack of cards that they click on and they go through and all. So then if I want to include it, I add it. So you see, I'm taking that lesson that I deleted some slides from and I'm adding slides. This is just where the slides are one right after another. Maybe you bring in a PowerPoint and they go through those slides. This is if you say you wanted to add a audio file, you have to know where you've saved it, but you can certainly bring in an audio file. This is the PDF viewer. We talked about how you might have added a document that you saved as a PDF so it could all be on one slide. So I was adding additional content. Now, I go through the same steps anytime I want to add activities. Here's the open-ended question. And I hope this is helping those of you that are newer to Nearpod and all. So you put your question here, and I'm just typing in Swedish because it's very fast, and this would be, what is your opinion of global warming? But here's where we talked about adding that reference materials. And this is where you would do this. Here's the audio recorder. You click on it. Here's your microphone. Students, today I would like for you to give me your opinion on what is causing global warming. Make sure that your explanation is very clear. I stop it. If I don't like it, I can trash it. If I like it, I save it. When the students get to this open-ended question, they will see an icon like that, and they know that they can click on that. Here's this toggle that we talked about. Enable student audio recordings. They could respond. You could have a passage in here, read this in Spanish. And they would click on, if you've turned this on, then they could respond orally, and you'll get a file in your reports where you can listen to it. So an open-ended question, very easy to do, very easy to add more to it. Now you see, I've got a bunch of things down here at the bottom that I'm going to need to put where I would like them, but that's okay. I'd rather get everything in first. Activities, matching pairs. This is fairly new. You create your own matching pairs. So you put your instructions. You can add a timer. And here we're studying presidents of the United States. I'm going to type in Abraham Lincoln. So I'm typing in text. Math teachers, you have the pi symbol. So you could add, If you were doing a math problem, you've got some symbols you can use. I want to add an image. So this goes to Google search, and I'm going to type in Abraham Lincoln. And I put Abraham Lincoln so that I don't get Lincoln cars. And I find this picture of Abraham. I click on it and it pops right in. I add another pair. I could add a math problem. It's going to be a very simple math problem. 9 times 9 equals. Add another pair. I could have vocabulary words. This is condensation. And here I would put in the definition of condensation. And you can see I can type a lot of very long definition. And then when I have my pairs done, I now have created this activity. Another way of reviewing, another way of doing formative assessment. And I save it. And let me say, if you have a matching pair activity and your students don't do very well on it, when you're doing the presentation, you can show the pairs and you and your students can discuss, why this one matches up to that one. So I went to create a slide, add activities. Quiz is just like adding any other quiz. You put your question, you put your answers. You have to choose the right answer. It won't let you go on. But remember, you have over here this ability to add media, video, or audio instructions. Okay, and I save it. Add a slide. Add activities. This is Flipgrid where you put in the URLs. This is the draw it. All you have to do is put in your instructions. You could upload a background image, like you might have a parabola, and maybe you want them to draw the line of symmetry. And if you're doing student pace, maybe you haven't, it's been a while since you've talked about line of symmetry. You might have a website or a video that they could refer to on what is the line of symmetry. Add a slide, add activities. This is the Collaborate board. Very easy to do. This is the topic. We're studying weather. I asked what I would like for them to post about explain the difference between a tornado and a hurricane. It's all there. That's all you need to do. Now you can have these different backgrounds. I like the first three because I think the contrast is better, easier for the students to read. But that's just me. Add a slide. Add activities. Here's the poll. And remember earlier we had a poll where you could make multiple selections. So you have your question here. And if you've got a bunch of choices for them and you want them to have the option of picking more than one, you just toggle that on right there. And then you save it. Add a slide. Add activities. Now fill in the blank. I really want to show you something on this. You have all this space that you can type in, but let me give you an example that you may not, that you need to understand. Let's see, 3 large cities in Texas are Dallas, Houston and San Antonio. I'm showing this to you for, I have a real specific reason for doing this. So you go ahead and you fill up all of this, and then you say next. And you select out of this text what words you want to go to the word bank. So I'm building, this is going to be a drag and drop activities. And the reason I'm showing you this, this will fill in the blanks will be graded for you. I put Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. Say your student put Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. That would get counted wrong because it's not in the exact order that you did it. But yet really it is correct. And all. So whenever I have something like this, I make sure that it's very sequential, either dates, largest to smallest, greatest to least or something, so that there's just only one right way to do it. So that's just my other hint of the day. Okay. Now you will not use memory test. Memory test is for the very little ones. It's like matching a dog to a dog, a cat to a cat. Now, let's say I have, I'm just going to pick this slide. It's fine. When I notice up here, this convert to draw it is grayed out. I can't do it. But once I select the slide, then this becomes an active option. So I click on it. Do you want to keep the original? I usually don't, but and all. And so now this is a draw it slide. And I double click on it. And I type in my instructions. And my instructions might be underline the proper nouns in red and circle the verbs. That could be 5 or 6 sentences and whatever. So I just took a slide that you couldn't do anything with and made it a draw it activity. Also, let me see if this one has, I'm looking for, okay, here's a quiz. This is just a normal quiz. Now, if I did want to turn it into a time to climb, I would click on it. And now you see I have this button here that says convert to time to climb. So it goes from just being a regular plain Jane quiz to the gamified version. So that's very, very easy to do. I don't know how many slides we have now. Remember, it had 20 something. I deleted about 4 and I've added all of these. And then I'm just taking these and I'm going to move them wherever I would like them to be in the presentation and all. So editing a lesson that you find in the Nearpod library is very easy to do. It's lots of fun, I think, and it makes it relevant to your students. Now, we're getting kind of close to the end, and I want to make sure, I think I've had 2 experts on to monitor the chat. So Erica, is there any questions that need to be answered, or have you been able to jump in and answer those?
I think Nicole and I got to most questions, but it didn't get to my question, which is when we're looking at our reports, is there a way to organize our reports when we're looking at student work? A lot of people would like to be able to organize these reports by class period.
Okay, here's what I do.
Okay.
Okay, and we haven't gone to reports, so I'm going to reports just so that everybody will have an idea of what it might look like. One, because you're high school, I would make sure I launch my lessons each time new by period, because I want to make sure that the students that are in period 1 are grouped together. The students that are in period 2 are grouped together. I don't want them all thrown in to one class for that day. So here's this lesson. I've taught it many times and all. And so you can see it tells me, so this might have been period 1, this might be period 2, period 3, so forth. So that's how I make sure I keep my students separated by periods. Now, when you click on this, and this is for everybody so they can kind of see what a report looks like. This is a summary. It tells me what was my participation on the quiz, how many, what's the percentage of right? I can go down here. These are my students by individuals, and I can look across here and see. Now, this is just my personal preference. Yes, I can use a quiz, and that'd be the most likely thing I might do as a grade. But a lot of times I am looking for understanding and all, and not trying to get my 10 grades for the 6 weeks or something. But, you know, the quiz, everything that can be graded will be graded. You'll see the poll responses. You can come over here. Here's the open-ended. This was a question that, you know, had no right or wrong answer. And so I can see here what how each student responded. Now, when I was doing this lesson, I was able to see the answers in real time. But, you know, you don't have to, you know, I can't remember all of that. I need to be able to go back to my reports to see that. And you can see time to climb is also graded. Fill in the blanks, your interactive videos and all. So I can see by quiz, I can see the overall, I can see by students. Now, you can take a report. One, you can print it. It's several pages long, but you can print it. And you can also download. If you do a download, you have a choice of downloading it as a PDF or as a CSV. And I know, especially in high school, they like to download it. If you download it as a CSV, then you can take it into Excel or such if you need to. So Erica, I don't know if that really, if that was what you were looking for, or if you wanted to.
No, basically I just want to be able to put all these into folders, but I have like talked to Nearpod about that feature.
Right.
Perhaps it's something they got to work on.
I know. I really feel sorry for the Nearpod programmers right now, because you know how teachers are. We want everything. We want it to do everything for us. And so I think they're getting bombarded right now with things. I would like this, I would like that. And also I think they have job security and all. But well, I hope this helped to see some of the newer features, how to beef it up, and how to, especially in your hybrid environment, how to use maybe Nearpod more effectively and all.
So Joan, we just had a question on the chat. Are you on Twitter?
Yes.
Would you mind putting your name in the chat?
Yeah, it's just at Joan Gore.
Or I'll do it.
Okay, it's very, you know, I'm not very creative like some people, but I will be, after this, I will be, those of you that put in your email, I will send you some other resources. And then Eric, as soon as, you know, the video stops, I can render it down. I put it in, I take it over to YouTube, and then I can share it with you. Okay. Well, have a great day. I know this is challenging for all of us, but we're going to get through it. And I truly believe that all of us are going to be better educators when this is done. We've all learned a lot. So have a good week. Stay, I guess you're cooler. I should say stay warm. We want it to cool off.
Cooler. It'll get up to like the 60s or 70s today, though, I think.
Oh, well, that sounds pretty cool. And so, okay, if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and stop the anyhow and end our session. Anything else though that needs to be?
Nope.
Okay, well, we're right on. Oh, we're on the dot. So it is time to stop.
Thank you very much, Joan.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Yes.